Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening for the Reimagining Public Safety in Schools panel discussion, sponsored by Black Lives Matter South Bend, NAACP South Bend Chapter, I apologize, Community Action for Education, CAFE, Michiana Alliance Against Racist and Political Oppression, and Community Forum for Economic Justice. We appreciate your presence this evening. If anyone is thirsty, there is a container of water in the back as we go through the next hour and a half or so. So please feel free to help yourself. My name is Tiana Batiste Waddell, and I am the founder and CEO of Liaison Consulting LLC, a consulting business whose mission is to support education institutions, corporate entities, and community organizations foster an inclusive environment to produce positive results. It is my pleasure to be your moderator this evening for our panel discussion. Thank you to IUSB Civil Rights Heritage Center for allowing us to use this facility for this evening. This center, a once segregated city swimming pool, committed to transforming this space into an active learning center that focuses on the civil rights struggles of the past so people can take action in the present and build a better future. This evening's efforts are going to continue towards building a better future by having a discussion with several stakeholders from our community around reimagining public safety in South Bend schools. Joining us this evening on our discussion panel are Leslie Wesley, South Bend School Corporation School Board Member and Board Member of the South Bend Empowerment Zone. We have Regina Williams Preston, a founding member of Black Lives Matter South Bend and President of Community Forum for Economic Justice. Professor Paul Mischer, member of the Michiana Alliance Against Racial and Political Oppression. Trina Robinson, NAACP President and President of the Community Action for Education, CAFE President. And Drew Duncan, who serves as the NAACP Political Action Chair. Thank you all for being here this evening.
Thank you.
The Institute of Policy Studies, in its report, the Reimagining School Safety Report, states that as the movement for racial justice forces a reckoning on police brutality, school districts across the country are reconsidering the place of police in our schools. The growing presence of police in schools has subjected marginalized students to higher rates of school-based arrests for nonviolent offenses, in turning providing a pathway from suspension to incarceration and increasing the frequency at which students are funneled from schools to prison. In fact, students in schools where SROs, or school resource officers, are stationed are 5 times as likely to be arrested than students in schools without SROs. As the COVID-19 pandemic has left public school budgets under heavy constraints, however, districts will have to decide whether they want to terminate their relationship with police departments or make cuts to counseling programs that have been shown to improve student outcomes. Any proposal to terminate a school's contract with the police will likely be met with pushback from local police unions. Membership rates afford them financial power they can leverage to spend on campaigns and litigation to block reform. In fact, one police union in New York City has spent more than $1 million on state and local political races since 2014. Cities such as Minneapolis, Portland, and Denver are moving forward to terminate school contracts with police, but the DC chancellor says he is disinclined to do so, even though 2/3 of DC voters surveyed support for removing police from schools. Ultimately, studies on the effects of these stringent security measures have found no evidence that policing in schools is effective in preventing school violence or increasing student safety. Yet there is substantial evidence to suggest that the presence of SROs harms students' development. This history of armed police officers in South Bend Community School Corporation dates back to the Civil Rights era. In April of 1968, following the April 4th assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., local students engaged in peaceful acts of civil disobedience. Students protested at school buildings and staged a sit-in at a Board of Trustees meeting. National NBC News correspondent Safiya Ali writes in her recent report covering local efforts to remove police officers from South Bend schools that, quote, while most cities began posting officers at schools in the 1990s, South Bend has a much deeper history reaching to the 1960s when officers were put into schools to manage Black children during school desegregation, according to the records in the Library of Congress, unquote. The purpose of this panel discussion is for our community to hear ways to reimagine public safety in schools. There are a series of questions that our panelists will respond to. Each panelist will have approximately 1 to 2 minutes to respond. So let us begin with our first discussion question. To start our discussion, I want to invite our panelists to give 2-minute remarks on the Standing Memorandum of Understanding, or the MOU, between the South Bend Community School Corporation and the City of South Bend, as it allows for armed police officers to be stationed in schools, yet it has not been adequately reviewed since 2012, nearly a decade ago. Panelists, what is your opinion on the current MOU? Let us start with Leslie, then Trina, Regina, Paul, and Drew.
Well, thank you. Thanks again for inviting me to be here. I've been on the board since January 2017, and I will say that the SRO officers have been a topic of discussion. Well, I'm here today to speak only as Leslie Wesley, one board member. The 2012-2013 academic MOU that was drafted between the City of South Bend and South Bend Schools is an indefinite MOU until one party formally gives an agreement of banding the agreement. It's indefinite. And so I want to make sure that I clear that up. Second, South Bend Schools, we've taken some steps in putting together a community survey on the topic of SROs in our schools and feedback from the community. I have to commend Dr. Cummins and Chief Crittenden and Mayor Mueller, who have had conversations and who have been meeting in reference to our SRO conversations. And because this MOU was signed by several years ago, and since then we've had 3 superintendents, it's very imperative that the new administration, along with the mayor and the chief of police, be able to examine the current MOU and be able to draft a new MOU for the upcoming year. Since the MOU was drafted, the police department has lost police officers. So the arrangement that was made in 2012 and to now current, lots of things have changed. I look at the MOU as a safety measure, and I am glad to say that Dr. Cummins has recently taken over the Safety and Security Committee and is leading the charge in making sure that it's complete. And with Dr. Cummins' leadership along with the board, a discussion will be going forth in 2021. Lastly, I'd like to say that our security resource officers in South Bend Schools are at Adams, Riley High School. They split between Jefferson and LaSalle, and they split between Jackson and Edison. Some of our schools right now don't have SRO officers because of the low recruitment from the police department. I will say again that the MOU that we currently have with the South Bend Police Department and the City of South Bend is indefinite, and until 1 or 2 parties agree to release the agreement, it is still in force. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, and I did fail to remind everybody that we do have time cards here as well, so just keep track with Ray so you can stay on your time.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank
I forgot to tell you that. I apologize. Okay, go ahead, Trina, please.
Thank you all for being here today. The MOU that's been provided by the South Bend Community School Corporation mentions an attached job description, which I have not had the opportunity to review. However, the MOU that was released by the South Bend Police Department identifies several pages of objectives and functions of the SROs. because our children are not being educated by the South Bend Police Department, but by the South Bend Community School Corporation. In my opinion, the October 9th, 2012 MOU is totally unacceptable and should have been updated annually and available to the community. It should never take actions of civil rights organizations to hold a press conference for such information to surface. The South Bend Police Department has a vested interest in the SROs remaining in the schools. However, the South Bend Community School Corporation has a moral obligation to provide an updated MOU that identifies the roles and responsibilities of the SROs that are patrolling the halls with our children. Thank you.
Okay, Regina, you were next.
My opinion, and what I know is true in my heart, is that this MOU is not valid. Now, most people would say, well, really, this is a legal question that we have to have the lawyers review it, and I appreciate board member Wesley making the point saying, oh, well, it's indefinite. Again, an issue is that we haven't seen, the district, to my knowledge, has not produced the actual MOU. We got it online from the police, the FOP. But that document that I saw had a line in it that actually said that both parties agreed to review this at least annually. So if that was there in the agreement, why has it not been reviewed in 10 years? More than that, I do agree that there is a legal perspective to be considered about whether it's an indefinite MOU or not. And we can dig in our heels and argue point by point, and it might take months or years to come to a legal conclusion. It's a legal question, but it is also a moral question and an ethical question. We give a lot of lip service to our values and to being student-centered and always seeking to do what's best for kids. The decision to have police in schools is very simple if you are looking through the lens of what's best for kids. You're gonna hear me talk about data all night, because to me, if we are truly data-driven, we need to go back to the data and let it inform us as to what's best for kids when it comes to this issue. And again, the data show that police officers do not make schools safer. And in fact, schools that have officers have shown for years that Black and brown children are more likely and disproportionately referred to juvenile justice, criminal justice system. So if we're looking at this issue, and we should, from a moral and ethical perspective, we need to throw out the MOU, stop spending time trying to say it's valid or not valid. Whatever it is, let's move forward, and let's move forward in the light of our values and what we know is best for kids. Thank you.
Paul, you were next.
Thank you all for coming. I'm really honored to be here on this kind of panel around this very serious issue. And I also believe that from what Leslie Wesley had said and from the discussion from the FOP and from the school board, that this is actually a perfect time to be reevaluating whether there should be an MOU at all between the school department and the police department. That's not the function of schools. It is not a branch of the criminal justice system. It is an independent system designed, as Regina has so clearly made, are we paying attention to the needs of kids, to the needs of children? And with that question being foreground, not the question of what the relationship is between the public schools and the criminal justice system, because that relationship is broken. It drives Black and brown children into the hands of the criminal justice system, from which it's very hard to get out of. And so I believe that this is the moment to say, we don't want this agreement. We want the community, the schools, the people of this city to say, what is going to be best for children? And just finally, I would say that, along the sort of, Regina mentioned the moral and ethical dimension of this. And I would say that there's a critical word that keeps getting left out of discussions, not only about police, but about a lot of things happening to the school, where we get lost in details and who's going to do what and how much money we have for this person or that person. And that critical word is democracy. And our schools, which are intended in their statements when they were founded to be laboratories of democracy for the children of this country, and the fights that have been waged, particularly by African Americans, to make that a reality, is completely at odds with the idea of having policing in the schools. It criminalizes Black and brown children. It makes it seem like public schools are arms of the criminal justice system, and young people know that. Well, you can't get things over young people. We try a lot as grown-ups to get over on them, but we can't. And they see that the presence of armed police in the schools is detrimental to their well-being and detrimental to their future as part of a more democratic, we hope, society.
Thank you, Paul. And Drew?
Man, everybody's pretty much said, a lot about the MOU. In my opinion, the MOU doesn't matter to me. The MOU is a tool that's being used by the FOP and people who want to shroud not voting on this as an issue of, are they legally in there or are they not? And at this point, I don't care. And when I speak to people who are at their doors, they don't care either. What they care about is the data that shows that students are being brutalized in these schools, Black, brown, and working class whites. So if you're poor, you're a minority now. And so when we talk to people door by door by door, block by block, if I hit an entire city block, I might be told no 3 times, and 2 of them will be, I just need more information. So what the MOU is the weaponization of the legal system to shroud the public and tell you, hey, there's nothing we can do about it unless both parties. Well, we have a school board that has members on it that can be swayed, that should be voting in the best interest of our students. And so, again, just to be short and brief, the MOU is irrelevant to talking about the issue of the brutalization of students in schools. So whether they're there legally or not is not the concern. What matters is what's happening in the schools. Secondly, I think it is incredibly irresponsible for any school board to allow an indefinite contract to be in place while sitting in there. If I was elected to a spot and there's a contract that supersedes me, comes before when I was here, I need everything reviewed. Why? Because while I'm here, I have been elected to be a steward for our students. And when I read this MOU, when I look at the job description, based on testimony from the officers, from the first meeting we've had about this that was public, they're doing things not on the contract, they're doing things well out of the scope of safety in the schools, and we have to stop it.
Okay, thank you for your responses. As a follow-up, you'll have 90 seconds to respond to this one. What provisions do you feel should be included or excluded from the newly proposed agreement? And we can go in the same order, or if anybody wants to start.
I'll start.
Okay.
One of the things with the newly proposed agreement that I would like to see is the name change. I think, and I would say from my own experience with SRO officers, I've been in the buildings for years as a parent and as a consultant and a volunteer. I look at the SRO officers as community staff. We have community buildings. I've watched SRO officers feed children. I've watched SRO officers be social workers. I've watched SRO officers be counselors. I've watched them be teachers. I've watched them be friends. I've had my own experience of watching SRO officers go beyond the call of duty to find students that haven't been in school, to go out with our social workers and our principals. And so I like to see the name change. I am very impressed with the zone of some of the name changes that they've incorporated in the zone. And so as we look at restorative justice and we look at some of the practices, I like to see some of the the titles change from SRO officer to more of life coaches or some type of title, because safety is the #1 priority. And as a board member, one board member, with my own opinion, I think that safety is the #1 priority when elected, is that in every institution, higher ed, games, football games, mall, anywhere you go, there is someone of safety there. So that's how I look at the SRO officers in our building.
Thank you. Trina, would you
I
like-
believe what needs to change or what needs to be added, it needs to be clearly identified what the roles and responsibilities are of the SROs. One of the meetings that we had, the officer that was overseeing the SROs said that they only deal with criminal activity. And when we asked what does that entail, no one is clearly able to identify what is criminal. So when you look at police officers there in the school, they are there for criminal activities. And oftentimes, those criminal activities leads the school to prison pipeline. So without any information as to what their roles and responsibilities are they there to educate the children? Are they there to keep the school safe? And who are they keeping safe? Sometimes the children themselves have to be saved from the police officers, that SROs that are in the schools, if we want to be realistic about it. So we need to identify, one, what clearly the roles and responsibilities are and the boundaries that they have as it relates to students that are there in the schools and the parents entrust the corporation to house. We also need to define, if we have only a few at a school, we only have one at a school and they're alternating, then who's keeping who safe? So are they really safe? The other schools are operating without them, so are we actually needing them? So as we began to look at what is needed and what to be excluded, I guess we need to look at why are they needed if one can be without while the other one is having an SRO there, and that would be my recommendation.
Thank you. Regina, would you like to go next?
For me, it's simple. No agreement should be made. I don't want anything included or excluded. There should be no agreement because we do not need police in schools, period, full stop. I think we need to do more than just change names of things. I appreciate that. I think language is really, really important. So I totally get what you're saying. Language is important because what we say is a reflection of what we believe, and it also lends to how we act. And everything that I've heard officers say that they do for kids and why it's good, or their mentors, or this, or that, those are things that can be done by other individuals. Any adult with the right focus and heart and training can be there to be enough support. So I think that we should simply put down the agreement, do not move that forward, and let's invest in proactive strategies and training for existing personnel. There's no reason to have guns in schools. There's no reason to have tasers in schools. These are things that harm children. Thank you.
Paul, you can go next.
Yeah, I mean, just to come off from what Regina said, I think we have to remember that according to Indiana state law, no serving police officer can be on duty without a sidearm, which means that this question is not about cops acting as social workers, cops acting as mentors. I appreciate any adult who participates in the schools to be able to help them out. What police, by our law, cannot do is they cannot be unarmed in schools. And the fact that we have armed police in the schools, it takes away anything else. I've met some of them. They had these meetings and they brought the best of the SROs out, and they were very kind and they were concerned with young people, and that was all well and good. And they go into schools with sidearms. What kind of message does that send to young people about how you're supposed to deal with the stresses of life? Very, very clear. It sends a message that guns are necessary. Is that what we want to tell kids? I think not.
Okay, thank you. Drew?
When we are looking at what's happening, a rebrand is just not enough. A guy with a gun that's an officer is an officer. No matter whether we call him a flower bed or a student resource friend, it's a cop. And so when I think of the MOU, I agree with Regina. I don't think that there needs to be an MOU. The schools are a part of the community. I think the place of police officers in our community is to be hammers. And as Regina has so eloquently said before, to hammers, everything is a nail. And when we think about our students in our failing schools right now, I don't think that we need hammers working with kids that need water, right? We need to water those minds so that they can grow. So I think that the MOU is another way for the corporation to gaslight the public against the police, and make it seem like there's this huge activist rebuke on what they're doing, and it's not. What I'm simply saying is we have a tool that is being used in an inappropriate way. And the tool that needs to be used with our students in schools should not be a hammer. So whether that's counselors and deans that is popular and successful in Penn Harris Madison, a succeeding and thriving school system, or something else. But through our board members' testimony, she's witnessed people being fed and going out of their way to do things for students, which I think is great. But there's a reason why there's a contract. Stay doing what you're supposed to be doing. We have a lunch lady to feed kids. We have people that follow truancy to go get kids. We have people that pull people out of classrooms. So again, when we think about the MOU, when we think about the staff that comes into contact with students in the building, a teacher has to have at least 5 years of education. A counselor has to have at least 6 years of education. Average police officer coming out of South Bend training is what, 8 weeks?
40 hours.
And we're saying that that's okay for our students, but we demand master's degrees and doctorates of other people who are teaching and nurturing the minds that will roam our communities in the future? I say no. So no to the MOU, no to rebranding. The data is clear. And at this point, if they weren't interested in reorganizing the memorandum until activists got involved, until the community got involved now, the data's clear, the community attitude is changing on it. I won't even say change, I think the community attitude has been clear. But when you get past the weaponized anecdotal stories of the students that they bring to smile, the 1 or 2 that they don't brutalize in the schools, and you look at the real data, you look at the students who are actually impacted by these things, it is impossible to ignore these things. So at this point, if you look at the data and you believe data, you are either a part of the problem, you're complacent or a cohort. So either you want them out, or you're okay with what's happening, or you definitely want to see more of this happen. Those are the 3 places that we can be after looking at the data in South Bend schools. No MOU.
Thank you. So for our next question, according to the Reimagining School Safety Report written by the Institute for Policy Studies as of 2019, there are nearly 50,000 school resource officers who patrol the hallways of America's schools. In schools that serve predominantly Black student populations, it is often much more than hallways that are patrolled. From your perspective, knowing the history of police in South Bend schools, that they were installed in response to our civil rights movement where South Bend students protested racism in our schools and community, do you feel that by keeping police in South Bend schools that we are in fact promoting systemic racism? And again, panelists, I would say that we have 1 minute to respond, okay?
I'm gonna pass, but
I will go. Yes, SROs are disproportionately placed in schools where the majority of students are Black. It has been documented that schools that are assigned SRO officers are more likely to have a punitive disciplinary policy in place, such as the 0 tolerance, as opposed to a restorative policy. The SROs perpetrate the school to prison pipeline, and in situations where there are fights among students, Black students are more likely to be referred to the juvenile justice system.
Thank you, Trina. Regina, would you like to go next?
The question was, do we believe by keeping police in schools that we're perpetuating systemic racism? And the answer is absolutely yes. These days, we're so quick to talk about institutional oppression and structural racism. Ever since the murder of George Floyd, there's been many organizations, school districts, businesses that issue public statements pledging to end systemic racism. I think maybe one of our school districts did that as well. But we have to do more than just make a pledge. And then go back and pat ourselves on the back like we kind of did something, right? What we have to do is learn to recognize, like you make the pledge, but then learn to recognize the dynamics of institutional oppression when they are at play. When I was on the Common Council, one of the things that we talked about was we actually had a recommendation from when we did the Racial Wealth Divide Report of 10 essential questions to ask ourselves before making any decision around economic development. And these questions were geared towards having a reflection time to understand, how is this decision going to impact people disproportionately? Who benefits? Who's going to be hurt by this? These are the types of things we have to do with every single decision. So we have to learn to recognize when these issues are at play, these dynamics of institutional oppression. We have to identify the patterns and have the courage to interrupt the pattern. Are we data-driven, right? Data say police don't keep schools safe. Why are we keeping them there? When the data says, in fact, they harm children, Black and brown children disproportionately. Police in schools harms kids. We've seen it in our schools. This is a pattern, time to interrupt it.
Thank you. Paul, 1 minute, please.
Yeah. I think it's really important that we don't have this discussion as if this is an ordinary citizens talking about specific policies for our city. This is a year in which the murder of George Floyd has highlighted the decades, centuries-long relationship between the forces of, quote, law and order and the African-American community, which has been based on violence. Violence against children, violence against adults, violence against men, violence against women. We can't have this discussion unless we see ourselves as being part of that national discussion. My organization, the Michiana Alliance, is part of a national organization committed to community control of policing, and we see that our work around having the police removed from the schools, part of that. They don't belong there. If you agree, you should sign our petition sitting back on the table. I see some of our collectors are in the audience, and they've been doing a wonderful job, as Drew said, going door to door and talking to people about it. And I think that the question as a specific, as my friends here have said, is really yes, but it's not just yes for South Bend. It's yes for the United States of America. As recent historians have pointed out, the presence of police in schools is not a response to criminal activity on the part of young people. It was a response to the efforts to desegregate American schools, in which white anti-desegregationists, racists, appealed for police protection against Black students who were going to, quote, invade their schools. There is no neutrality here. There's no neutrality here. That's what they were brought in for. And you can see it in South Bend. I realized in this, as I got involved in this, that there is a popular history of what happened in 1968. You know how people in South Bend talk about it? The riots in 1968. There were no riots. There was peaceful, responsible, disciplined demonstrations, pickets, and civil disobedience by African-American students who were harmed by police rioters. It wasn't a riot by young people. If you've seen, you can see the footage, you can see the photos. These are people you want your kids to be hanging around with. These are the best and our brightest. Yeah, how do we remember them? As rioters? That should give us pause. And the reason that we see them as rioters is because the narrative is being written by people who think, as Drew put it, and we're all quoting that, who see themselves as hammers. And every question is a nail. I lived in New York during the Giuliani era, and he was the same way. He saw every issue of inequality, injustice, and the only response was a nightstick. And we got that. We got that with Amadou Diallo being shot 14 times in the back. We got that with people being killed on street corners all over the city because they saw that the growing inequality of New York, the answer to that is a nightstick and a gun in the hands of the police. So we don't exist separately. We are part of this rediscussion and reimagining not just public safety, but reimagining who we are as a country.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, Drew, would you want to respond to that?
They got it.
Okay, all right, I'll move on.
Yeah.
You used your minute. Okay, thank you. Okay, according to the Reimagining School Safety Report written by the Institute for Policy Studies as of 2019, youth criminalization in schools is an incredibly discriminatory practice, and it encompasses nearly all intersections of race, class, gender, sexuality, and ability. School police officers disproportionately use force on students of color when handling minor discipline issues such as disorderly conduct. This targeted criminalization can have lasting effects on students' future outcomes. We know that 37% of the student body is Black in South Bend schools, yet Black students make up between 60 to 70% of students expelled or suspended, which is a gross overrepresentation. From your perspective, in what ways is South Bend Schools intervening around anti-Black practices so as to ensure disproportionalities do not exist and impact children's future? Start with Leslie.
I am so excited for that question because I am so pleased that we have finally moved the mark in developing our Department of Equity. Dr. Tessa Sutton and her administration there are doing a wonderful job. We have missed the mark in having that department up and running. But I'm more excited about putting together a department that is going to build systems, our PBIS and TSS systems. We're able to, our social emotional, very excited about our restorative practice. I had a student that emailed me and so excited about taking the charge and leadership over at Riley High School. Have we missed it in the past of not having this department? Absolutely. It was developed years ago because activists like yourself, the audience or here at the table, went to the current administration and said we need someone that can work directly with the African American students. But what was missed is that you asked, but you didn't ask. So they gave you little. They gave you a little, they gave you one person, they gave you a secretary. But in order to build a system, it takes a department. And so I'm very pleased with this board and administration with Dr. Cummins is that we have started to develop a system. Being able to look at the disproportionality of African American students, and particularly our African American boys, our children of color, our Hispanic young men that are low on graduating and high to drop out. And so I think that I am excited, and I'm here today. You may not always agree with me, and that's okay, and that's what makes us great leaders. But I think we have to start somewhere. And I will say as one board member, myself, speaking only from myself, one of 7, is that we are starting, and I am seeing great gains.
Thank you. Trina.
I would like to believe that the corporation is doing all that it can to eradicate the disparities among students of color. I, however, feel a little less optimistic about the team that has been put in place to deal with the disparities. It bothers me when we have white students that are valedictorians and they can get before their peers and talk about the systemic racism within the corporation, and the students that are in honors classes that are Black, how they are not being perceived to be able to do the work. So I would love to be able to believe that the corporation is doing all in which it could to eradicate systemic racism when we know that they're still currently under consent order and still have to report on a quarterly basis as to their suspensions and expulsions and their code of conduct, which has yet to be approved. So it gives me it really pains me as a president of a National Association for Advancement of Colored People to think that a corporation has to be forced in which to do the right thing, when it should be something that should be automatic, because if one child fails, all children fail. And it shouldn't matter whether or not you're Black or white or brown or if you're Latino or whatever. It should matter that if this child does not succeed, our community fails. And it's a shame that the corporation can pay individuals to come in and do the job, which should be a moral obligation.
Thank you. Regina?
I can't speak and won't speak on behalf of South Bend schools, any South Bend schools, what they're doing or what they're not doing. But what I know is that there are examples all over the country that take this issue on head on, unapologetically, as we say. And that's something that I think that this community has begun to do, but we've yet to really hear that in a way from administration in South Bend Community School Corporation. I have not heard that from my perspective as a citizen and as a teacher. In fact, if we look at a lot of what I have heard is concern that, well, you know, we can't do this because the union, because the union. And sadly, having been a member of South Bend's local chapter, one thing I noticed is a huge discrepancy between what the local union is promoting and what the national NEA, of whom I'm proud to be a part of. They have many campaigns around these issues, including ending the school to prison pipeline. They say racial justice is education justice, and they even say, hey, Black Lives Matter at school. And when we can't do that, and when we have a union here, I'm glad someone mentioned the code of conduct, because this question speaks to this issue of what are our policies around discipline and how does that address? Well, our own code of conduct, actually the local union has stepped up and said they don't agree with it. They don't want, you know, and the main issue, they said, well, we want more. Why don't you agree with it? We want more student accountability. We want more parent accountability. Pointing the fingers outwards instead of looking to what's in. And I think it's our leadership in the schools needs to say no. They need to stand firmly on the side of children and make children at the center and say, you know what, it's up to us as adults to do what's best for kids, unapologetically. And that's what I'm looking forward to hearing from our school leaders, to step out and say, this is what it is. Let's not be scared. It's anti-Black policies that's happening, and we're going to change it.
Thank you.
Paul?
I've always had some issue with the word disproportionality, because I think it's a euphemism. And I think that what it's a euphemism for is the completely explicit racist practices of American public education. That, yes, it disproportionately affects African Americans and Latinos because that's what racism is. And if we don't address that forthrightly, then it's not only Black and brown children who are going to suffer, but one of the problems with disproportionality was say, well, if Black children were treated like white children, everything would be cool. But it's not. White children are also suffering because in some ways, in schools like in other parts of society, blaming Black families is only a part of the process in which the families of all children are blamed for failures of the system. Right? There are actually far more poor white people in this country than there are poor Black people. There's a large white population, and their kids are screwed. But the only reason they can get screwed is because we as a society say, well, it doesn't matter if it happens to Black kids. And the moment we say that, we're putting all children at risk. Now, I just want to mention something that seems really far away from South Bend.
30 seconds.
Okay.
30 seconds.
That's the UN Declaration on the Rights of the Child. And I'm really struck by Regina's kind of focus on children. And I think this is a document that we don't know very much about. It was presented by the United Nations in 1959 and has as its first article that children, this is about children having the right to be free of racism and oppression due to religion and national origin. A UN document. Now, what's interesting about it is we are the only country, developed country, that has not ratified it. We're the only one. So everybody making protests that this is what we want, how come a document which has things like children have the right to good education, children have the right to grow up without racism, children have the right to be nurtured and cared for and loved, and we have not ratified it? By the way, the other two countries are the Sudan and Somalia, so countries that do not have a great record in treating children. But every other developed country in the world ratified it except for us. So I think we don't get out of this unless we do, as Regina has said, put the children and their needs first. And that means the question of safety has to be reevaluated. The schools are not a war zone. If they are, that's a systemic problem. Schools have to be to serve children, primarily. Not teachers, not administrators, not school board members, not adults, not any. That's what it's for. And until we get to that, Disproportionality is just racism in another word.
Thank you, Paul. Drew?
Disproportionately, when we're looking at the data, it's so problematic. You know, again, I've just been so excited to get in front of people at their doors and show them the data, what we're paying for them, what the crime rate is, how it hasn't gone down. I think a couple years ago, 100% of the arrests at Clay were Black students. How does that happen? So, you know, we have to, I don't even think I can say we have to start asking ourselves questions, right? We already know, right? So at this point, if you're a public member and you trust data and you're hearing and looking at the things that are going on, like, what are you going to do about it? Because now we are at threat that your kid will be swept into this. Not just the Black and browns, we talked about this, working class whites they're being treated like minorities day after day, more and more. So it's the poor against the ruling. And they use police, the ruling class, the people who are in charge, to do things like when we want Black kids out of schools, let's arrest them all. Let's put police officers there to make them fearful so they don't want to be there. Let's make sure that the ones that are loud and able to speak for themselves, let's make sure that we get them records early. Again, complacency or cohorts. If we're looking at the data, even if you say, okay, I don't want to say that the police are the problem, right? Again, then let's remove them from the situation so that we can start shining a light on the bad practices of the school court, whether that be teachers unions, whether that be administration, because again, we've talked to people that have made it very clear that SROs are weaponized against students when teachers don't want to deal with a, you know, rambunctious kid in class. And, you know, I wasn't the best behaved kid, but I've never been pulled out of a classroom by a cop. But I've talked to many people at the doors, many students who have white, Black, brown, or other. It's problematic. So when we ask ourselves what's being done by the school court, I say nothing, because we aren't even at a point where we can agree and admit that there's systemically a problem wrong with the schools. We keep telling people that incrementally we're going to change something that doesn't exist. So either there's racism, and if there is, we can't be incremental about it. We have to be radical. It has to come sweeping changes. And not only that, because we have a mandate by our students. We just had a referendum passed. We have tons of taxpayers, including myself, who voted to raise our taxes so that we can support our schools in a better way. And when I look at how money is being spent, when I look at the resources that are being put around our students to make them successful, this is not it. And so as a taxpayer, as an advocate around this, as a person who ran for state rep around this issue, it will stay a passion of mine, and until the school decides that they want to admit and actually work around these things, I don't think that we can really get anything done.
Thank you. According to their Reimagining School Safety Report written by the Institute of Policy Studies as of 2019, the effects of juvenile policing and punitive discipline can have lasting impacts on a student's emotional well-being and future outcomes. According to the ACLU, schools employing police officers have seen increases in student offenses and student arrests by as much as 400%. Although SROs, along with stringent security measures, are employed to promote school safety and reduce instances of violence, studies show that their presence often has the opposite effect. A study of 98 middle and high schools, 98 middle and high schools in the state of Maryland with varied 10 levels of security found that students who attended schools with the most security cameras felt the least safe and supported. The targeted policing of Black, brown, disabled, and LGBTQ students harbors widespread mistrust between students and law enforcement, resulting in an increase of student offenses both in and outside of school. Activists and community organizations are actively campaigning to remove armed police officers from South Bend schools in light of disproportionalities that impact Black students overwhelmingly. Please share your thoughts on this campaign. Do you feel it is effective? What is your perception of how the broader community feels about this movement to remove police officers? And you'll each have 2 minutes, and I'll say 30 seconds, okay? Thank you.
She's very bold with that. I will say, working with youth and families in the community and talking with, having a son that just graduated from high school. And that was a good conversation for me to have with him and his peers. They have a very high regards and respect for the SRO officers. In fact, the SRO officers are present, he's athletic, and so the SRO officers are present at their games. Sometimes one of their biggest fans. And so from my perception and from what the community members I've spoken with, they are in great support of SRO officers in the schools. And that's my opinion. I'm one board member again, as I stress, is that I feel that I was in school with a SRO officer, in fact. And so you can't go anywhere in America and there's not a policeman. They're at the mall, they're at the games, they're at tailgate. I mean, they're everywhere. They're in the community, they're on our streets. Just like you have bad cops, you have bad teachers, you have bad business people, you have bad board members. You can't stop and say that because you have SRO officers, and I, of course, I appreciate the study from Maryland, but I'd like to see the study here in Southland. We've had some past problems, but I want to move us forward in saying that I'd be interested in having us survey the students now in the buildings, now that they're back, to ask them, how do they feel? Since we're talking about center focus of students, let's survey our students and ask them, how do they feel about the SRO officers in the building? In fact, I think that would be a very good survey to put out, and I would make a recommendation of going back to administration and the board and asking them to put that survey out, because let's hear from the students. Center focus students, they're the ones that are going to be impacted, not the adults. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think the campaign is very much needed. I think there's a lot of misinformation that is circulating around the community. I think there's the powers to be that want to perpetuate fear in the schools for behavior that are childlike. They want to talk about, what if you have a mass shooting in the schools? Our urban schools, we don't have mass shootings. It concerns me that we're worrying about whether or not SROs should be in the schools, but we have to question, does this corporation have an active shooters plans if there was such a shooter situation there in the community? And so I think it's important, and you have to ask the students, are you one of those students that are probably less likely to get in trouble in schools? Are you one of those students who are doing well in school? You have both parents at home or whatever? Are you one of those students that are very well liked? And so the police officers like you. I know for a fact that I had a son that was a victim of police brutality. And to this day, he still wonders when he walks whether or not he's going to be beaten or he's going to be attacked, or if he's being watched because he's a Black male as walking in halls. So I am really concerned that this campaign really needs to shed light on the reality, not the perception, but the reality of those students that are less likely to talk because of fear of retribution, or wondering whether or not if they say something, whether or not a cop is going to come by their house, or they're going to taunt their parent, or they're going to taunt them. We have to think about the students whose parents might have had an interaction with the police officer, and how do they feel, and what are their perceptions of an officer being there in the schools. And so there's a lot of factors that we have to consider, and I think this campaign opens up the door for the realities and not the misconceptions that we're keeping kids safe when we actually are not keeping them safe. We're just perpetrating the school-to-prison pipeline.
Thank you.
And can I say, are we not only not keeping them safe, we are traumatizing our children? And I say that because I'm going to speak to the issue of, Leslie, I think your point makes a lot of sense. Let's talk to the children. What are the children's experience? I have talked to the children. My life's work has been with students who have the greatest needs and challenges around behavior. These are the kids that get suspended, get kicked out, are involved with the juvenile justice system. And I've reached out to them over the years and asked them to engage in this campaign because I know their stories, I know their experiences. One child who's brilliant had one interaction his first couple days of high school, and it took him on a completely different path. He got on probation because he was trying to break up a fight. They thought he was fighting, grabbed him, and he ended up flailing around. And anyway, whatever. The point is, it was all bad. He ended up on probation throughout the entire school. He said, "Miss, I can never get off probation. I can never get off probation." He said, "Forget it, I can't take it." He ended up JJC all the time, so he just took the GED and he passed it. He hadn't had any high school. That's how brilliant this child was. This is the damage we're doing to great kids. And as I talk to him now as a young father of 2 boys, and I said, "Hey, I know your experience. What do you see? What do you think?" He was like, no, cops should not be in schools. I've heard this not just from him, but a number of students. And they recount this experience that they had. I was thrown up against the wall, one girl said, and she's a little petite thing, even now as a young woman. Said, "Yeah, they threw me up against the wall and bit my arm all back, man, it hurt, it was terrible." And she said, then, "Well, I guess I deserved it. I was talking back to him."
30 seconds.
This is the trauma that we are inflicting on our children. It's that dysfunctional feeling of self-hate that I must have deserved it if I was treated in this way. And I have to say, yes, I agree. There are bad teachers, there are bad businessmen, there are bad in everything. But guess what? Bad teachers can't shoot you. Bad businessmen, bad bosses can't tase you. They can't just throw you in handcuffs and drag you off to the criminal justice system. We have to set this aside and say, the stakes are too high for the impact and the trauma that we're having on our kids. We're perpetuating the self-hate because all the kids see it, black, white, everybody. They see it, they recognize the disproportionate issue, but it's creating a narrative that's untrue about our Black children. So it must stop. It's that culture of fear and intimidation. They don't want to speak up, they're afraid because they say to me, "Miss, I would come, but I have to live in this community." Think about that. They don't want to speak up about the harm that's happened to them because they're afraid. Out in the streets, we're not there to protect them. This has to stop.
Thank you. Paul?
I think, we hear the term systemic racism or institutional racism a lot. And I think we're now using that as kind of a vague kind of say, well, this is nobody's responsibility. It's not like the South in the civil rights era. It was Chief O'Connor, and he was sending the water cannons out and the cops to beat up civil rights demonstrators. You say, oh yeah, what a terrible person he was. But when we say institutional racism or systemic racism, it allows all of us to say, oh yeah, it's nobody's fault. Just kind of there. But these stories that not only of our school, but the stories are being told across this country this summer. And reading about, read Baldwin, read Richard Wright, read Black writers from 1800s till today about what their interactions with police are, and you'll say, yeah, there may be a nice guy, right? I know they are. I know there may be individuals who are nice and care about the students. That is less than relevant. If they really care about the students, get a job in the schools, take off their guns, right? If they really are the kind of good mentors that students need, then they should be hired, not as cops. The relationship between police and the African-American community, particularly young African-Americans, has too long of a terrible, terrible history. And that history walks the corridors of our public schools. It doesn't matter who they are, it doesn't matter how nice they are, how tolerant they are, how friendly they are. They wear the badge and the gun and the uniform, and they are walking history.
Okay, thank you. And Drew?
In short, I do feel it's effective. One of the tasks that we're being put to right now is we're focused on the vote. We've been having this discussion for years. Community organizations have been having this discussion for years. Now's the time for action. And I believe in electoral consequences. So we're targeting votes in people's districts. And, it's going to be kind of hard to tell us, no, you're not going to vote when we have 1,500 signatures in your district. So that's the plan. So I feel it is really effective. And as far as the broader community, how they feel about it, again, there's this narrative that's been peddled, this fallacy that's been peddled to the public, that there's this huge plethora of support in the community to keep police officers in the school, and that's a lie. And I can say that without being anecdotal because I've been to the doors, not just targeted doors, every single door. When I see a sign that says Proud Union, when I see a Trump flag, when I see whatever, we knock at every door because every student matters to us and we want to know what every single parent is talking about, whether you support it or not, right? That's what we're going to find out. To my understanding, the school did a survey. It's like 1,500 respondents. We'll get that information soon. But I can guarantee you not all 1,500 people said yes, and that mixed with the signatures mean that the community support outweighs what the school corporation has put forth. So at that point, if we're talking about a vote, right, if we're talking about community support, it's already there, and it's only going to continue. By the end of this month, we plan to be at 5,000 signatures, and I want to see people ignore us then. And if they do, it's at their own peril because an election is coming up, baby, and we know what to do there, right? So that's the plan. It's working. The community didn't need to change its mind on it. They weren't being talked to or engaged around the issue. And now that they are, the jury's in. They want them out. So.
Thank you. Just a couple more questions left for me, and we'll go to our audience, okay? According to the Reimagining School Safety Report written by the Institute for Policy Studies as of 2019, many studies indicate that the safety and well-being of students has been ill-served by armed police who are committed to a model of punitive discipline over providing students with the support they need to develop healthy alongside their peers. Many school districts across the country have begun to explore alternative models of conflict resolution, such as restorative justice circles, that have been shown to foster safe environments and positive outcomes for students, especially Black, Latinx, LGBTQ, and disabled youth. South Bend schools and the city of South Bend spend roughly $500,000 on 4 armed police officers in South Bend schools. Many feel this is a waste of public dollars given the learning challenges and gaps that exist amongst students. What is your perspective on this? And again, we have 1 minute and I'll let you know your 30-second mark.
Again, I am so proud, and I'm going to say, about our restorative justice practices and that we've taken the stand and supporting our high schools with, and our middle school principals and leadership with restorative justice practices. This has been a long time coming, and I think that I have to commend administrators and also cabinet and also the leadership in our buildings for taking that leap and wanting to be that leader that would take the stand of saying, we're going to practice restorative practice in our buildings. It's been a long time coming. A lot of statistics used tonight are old data. Let's start using data that's been updated. Pull the data from the last 2 years from South Bend. It's great to hear about Maryland and some of the other places and 50,000 other cities, but I want to know what we're doing right now. And many questions around equity and support of our students. And I stress the commitment that South Bend Schools is taking in dismantling anti-Black practices and also increasing support for our students. I cannot tell you enough that the staff that we have in our equity department are qualified. They're doing their job and making sure. Is it going to take baby steps? Absolutely. But I have to commend them for taking those steps. Again, I have to commend our leadership and our board for being able to step out. This has been a long time coming. I'm a product of South Bend schools. And yes, I was a product of systemic racism, but I also was a product of a teacher that stripped away, not by gun, but tried to strip away my mental capacity by humiliating me in 2nd grade. And she was an African-American teacher. So this is not about color. No, she didn't have a gun and she didn't walk around with a uniform. But she humiliated me in front of my peers, which could have stripped away all of my self-esteem. And she tried. And so, ladies and gentlemen, today, we can sit around and talk about uniforms, but again, we have policemen and security guards everywhere we go here. I went to a wedding this weekend, beautiful
10
wedding.
seconds.
They had a policeman in a high, fluent establishment here, a venue. So let's just get to the real core of the thing. This is not about the policeman, okay? This is about building children. And whether you're there with a gun or a book, you should be there to empower those students. And if you look at the data and look at statistics, and I'm sorry, Tina, I don't mean to disrespect you with the time, but the makeup of our SRO officers that are in our buildings are African American minorities. And let's also look at the statistics. The schools that we have our SRO officers are A, B, and C schools. We only have 2 of our schools that are failing that have SRO officers, and they've been failing for years. Has nothing to do with the SRO officers. The SRO officers have nothing to do with our students not being able to read. So we want to build systems. I applaud you for getting those signatures. But as you knock on those doors to get those signatures to remove those SRO officers, encourage those same families to come to PTO meetings and to call back those teachers and to be partners with us. Come to board meetings. So that's what I'm asking from you today. Thank you.
If anybody needs me to repeat the question, please let me know. Trina?
Yeah, just give me the short version of
Okay.
it.
South Bend schools in the city of South Bend spend roughly $500,000 on 4 armed police officers in South Bend schools. Many feel this is a waste of public dollars, given the learning challenges and gaps that exist among students. What is your perspective?
Okay. My perspective is this: we do have security officers that are in schools. And I've had the opportunity of speaking to those security officers, and I asked them exactly what is it that you do? They are the first line of defense. They're the ones, if the children are having problems, they're the ones who try to be the mediator and de-escalator of situations that happen in the schools. So it is my recommendation that those very same security officers that are being paid minimally should be paid more. They should be trained on restorative justice. They already are familiar with the children because some of them had kids themselves who's gone to school, so they have built a relationship. You want to talk about relationship building, that's relationship building that is best. We might have 4 African-American officers that are in our schools patrolling our hallways, but are they always for our students? As Leslie has already stated, that Black teacher that tried to attack her character, those same Black police officers are attacking some of the characters of the students that are walking the halls of our schools. Let's not kid ourselves. So you're right, it's not about the security officers, it's about the education of the children. And we do have, not SROs, excuse me, but it's about what is best for our students. If you have a relationship with your security officers and they're in the schools and the police are there to keep the peace, then why are they there when you only have 4 and you have how many schools? Some schools are without, as I mentioned before, so therefore, who's patrolling those schools? And those schools are running okay. We're not hearing about any mass shootings or anything, so they're okay. So it lets us know, that's the data that lets us know it can be done. So if it can be done when those schools that don't have security officers, SROs there, it can definitely be done permanently, and those dollars that are very well spent can be utilized to train those individuals who have a relationship with our students and have a relationship with the parents of those students.
Okay, thank you. Regina?
As it relates to taxpayer dollars, the bottom line is we just have to stop investing in strategies that don't work. Go back to the data. I told you, you're gonna hear me say it again and again. The data show it doesn't work. It doesn't work across the country, it doesn't work here. Why do we continue to spend our dollars on those things? Police make schools less safe. Children are being harmed. And I'm gonna say, it's not just the children who have the greatest needs and challenges. I'll tell you a quick story, 1 minute, you make me stop.
30 seconds.
30 seconds, hey, wait a minute, he says 1 minute. No fair, no fair.
It's gonna happen.
All right, no, quickly, my own niece just graduated summa cum laude from a South Bend high school. I'm very proud of her, it's awesome. Never a discipline issue. One day I had to bring her something in school she had forgotten. And I called her, it was her lunchtime, I knew when to go, that lunchtime, we're not interrupting, whatever. I pulled up to the school, I said, okay, I'm out here, come grab it. I'm in the lunchroom. I'm like, okay, just talk to somebody adult and come on out. She's like, no, I can't leave. It's against the rules. I don't want to move. I talked to her, I ended up going in, doing all the process, getting what she needed.
10 seconds.
I talked to her later, and she said, I'm just terrified to move. I try to be really, really small and don't make any reason for an adult to look at me because I'm afraid that they will do something to me if I do something wrong. This is one of the near valedictorians having that same experience of fear because of the way our schools have the culture of fear and intimidation. That's what police do in our schools. End of story.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
Yeah, I think it's been said quite eloquently. Whatever money we have in the school system, and it's very limited for reasons that we all know, should be put toward helping, nurturing, teaching students in positive ways, not in negative ways, whether it's restorative justice, smaller classes, taking care that students who are already frightened by their life can get over it. Black and brown children come into these institutions frightened because the system of racist intolerance and injustice is national. So let's cure that.
30 seconds.
That's it. Thank you. I could go on.
I'm proud of you.
We're PhDs. We have a license to go on.
Okay, we'll end with Drew with this question. Do you need me to repeat it?
No,
Okay.
the question is it a waste of taxpayer money? And at roughly $500,000 on 4 people, we all graduated from school here. That's a lot of money. That's a lot more money than a lot of people in this room are making. Right? So
And all of us put together.
when we say waste of money, right? Like we're gonna keep us in school. Let's do some simple dividing. 500,000 divided by 40,000 is 12 and a half. So for the same money we're spending on 4 part-time officers that are not in these buildings full-time, they split the time, we could get almost 13 full-time staff paid over 15,000 what the median pay in South Bend is. So we could create jobs, give full attention to our students. We could hit more buildings, almost 13 buildings for the same amount of money. So if we're talking about waste of money, waste of resources, how this money is going to be used, again, simple math, 4 or 13, right? So it doesn't matter how we feel about it. It's about data. It's about data. It's about data.
Okay, thank you. According to Reimagining School Safety Report written by the Institute for Policy Studies, as of 2019, school resource officers are known by different names and may be employees of the school district, police departments, or private contractors. In South Bend Schools agreement, they are employed by the South Bend Police Department under the current outdated Memorandum of Understanding. Some districts employ language of support and community and descriptions of their security programs, but in each case, the investment in security officers represents funds that could have been redeployed from a law enforcement framework to hire specially trained counselors, psychologists, and social workers. For the final question this evening, how can we move from criminalization of children to a school environment that instead supports their social, emotional, and academic health and safety so that all children may thrive?
I'm gonna let Sabrina start.
Okay.
I'm gonna finish it.
All right. I would just like to say, I've been dealing with the South Bend School Corporation for a very, very long time. And I very much appreciate the things that are going on, but I am a realist, and I'm just gonna say this. First of all, the corporation has to deal with the fact that we have private schools in a public school settings. And what I mean by that, we have LaSalle Academy, we have Kennedy Academy, and the corporation, that was put in place by design. Our students are often placed there because of the consent order, which allows mandate that there's a percentage of Black students that have to be in the schools. So knowing that they're there, then you get some students that are there because they may falter over that percentage, and then they're kind of forced out, either because they're saying that their behavior problems, they're not keeping up or whatever. But the fact of the matter is that until we can level the playing field and make everything accessible for children of color, we need to offer the honors classes. We need to encourage them to take CTE classes. We need to offer all the resources that are over at an Adams or a Riley. We need to offer it at a Clay and a Washington. We do not have the same functions and the same programs available that will encourage them to have a wage that is worth living for other than a McDonald's. So we want to talk about how can we stop criminalizing our students. It has nothing to do with the police, but it has something to do with equity and making sure that every student has a right, whether they chose to be a part or not, but that is a fundamental right at all schools and not just some. And we're seeing that some schools have a bigger piece of the pie than some others. And no one is going to be successful when just a few just have that little piece of pie.
Okay, thank you. Regina, and again, you have 1 minute. I apologize, I didn't say
No
that.
problem. What's it gonna take to change? It's gonna take a shift in mindset. Policies are critically important. We have to have what we believe written on paper, and we have to make sure that our practices are matching those policies that are written in an equitable way. Because even when we have those policies in place, you know that we have to make sure that what we're doing is driven by core beliefs that children, not just all children can learn, but all children want to learn, right? And so that if there's something blocking them, if they're not learning, there's something that's in the way. So we have to change our core beliefs, and it's about understanding how power, justice, the sense of belonging, and the sense of joy, those four social dynamics are at play in our classrooms and in our school buildings one way or another. But we have to begin to understand ourselves how to create practices and implement practices and deliver instruction in a way that helps demonstrate, model first, the difference between power over and power with. And as it has to do with police officers, that's a big difference. Power with, instead of control and compliance, we need collaboration and cooperation. I'll
Thank
stop
you.
there.
Okay, Paul, 1 minute.
Well, I have been very privileged to sitting between these two wonderful women who have been saying much about what I wanted to say. I just want to end with saying, you know, the United States has more prisoners per capita than almost any country in the world. And a large number of those prisoners are African American and other people of color. We can't address problems in South Bend unless we honestly confront the role of punitive criminalization and racism that is deep in the bones of this country and is reflected in the fact that while we proclaim ourselves the land of liberty and freedom and we tend to force other people to do it our way, we have the most prisoners of any country per capita.
30 seconds.
Think about that. That means we're doing things the entirely wrong way. Not just in the schools, but in the job markets, in the communities, that we are doing something wrong. And if we don't change it, all the goodwill, all the good wishes are not going to work.
Thank you, Drew.
Real quick, students should not have to have a working relationship with SROs in order to be treated fairly and properly in the schools. I don't have to speak to you, I don't have to respect you. Your job is to be here and secure the school. And so, again, to make the false equivalency that if they're popular, if they're liked, that, you know, cops like them. And that's true, but that's not their job. Additionally, I think that, again, this is being used as something like we're attacking the police. What we are attacking is systemic racism. This is a systemic problem. So when we talk about Black faces of police officers, Black teachers, systemic means system. Means no matter who you plug or play into that system, it can keep churning. Black, brown, white, green, whatever.
30 seconds.
So it doesn't matter who's in that system. The system is built to chew up and spit poor Black, brown, and white children out of it. So if we continue to perpetuate the fallacy that if you're nice, if you're a good student, there's bad cops and good cops, then we're not going to get anywhere. The data shows us very clearly. The data here shows us very clearly. So we have to stop peddling lies and get active. People who are on that board, you know, I speak to Alita, you know, Leslie's on this board. It's a vote. And the public needs that. So, you know, the thing about these petitions is showing people who are in elected positions that maybe don't have the capacity because what they're doing to speak to these people door to door. We're gonna do it for them. We're gonna let you know what the people in your district want. And so you can either vote in that way or you don't. But if we want to create an equitable system, we have to understand that it's a system attacking our students, not individuals, not nice cops, not bad cops. It's a system that cops are implanted in it as a peg to gaslight the public. So when you try to dismantle it, now you're a police officer hater. Now you don't like the police. No, I just hate seeing kids get brutalized. I hate our students feeling like they're unsafe, even though we have a guy or a female with a gun in a school. I hate our students feeling that look like me and sound like me, that if they come to school and we're bright or we're loud, that somehow we're wrong and that we're in danger of being removed from an educational setting. And the last thing that I want to talk about, safe environments, right? If we're going to talk about safe environments, everywhere we go in public do have police officers. Everywhere we go in public have people around us that we don't have control over. In that school system, they vet every single person that's hired. Every single person that deals with your student has a degree. They've been to school. They've run through a process. Right now, police officers are just passing in and out of there. So again, if we're going to hold our educators, our counselors, the people who are actually watering the flowers of our students, that's going to shine on our future, right? If we're looking at them and demanding that they have 5-6 years of education, I agree with Paul. If you're a cop out there, you're listening to this, or you don't like what's going on with the SRO, give your gun and badge up and come be a counselor in the school.
Thank you. All right. Thank you to all of our panelists for your insight on ways to reimagine.
Respond. Did Leslie want to respond? She said she was gonna go later.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to respond?
Yeah, I don't agree with,
I apologize.
Yeah, that's okay.
Sorry.
I'm just gonna be very brief. I don't agree with, the schools, Southland schools, and the criminalization and all of the accusations that are made. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here at the forefront with 6 other people, and we're making changes. And we're taking bold moves, first by looking at our strategic plan and meeting and having outside counsel come in and meet with us as board members, which has not been done in a very long time. Holding our superintendent accountable. We're an education system. But spending the resources to build community schools is what I agree about. And that involves SRO officers. That involves the community. That involves the city. That involves the higher ed. That involves everyone that can come in to provide what Trina said, equity, so that all of our buildings are able to be equipped with equity. Do SRO officers play a part of that? Absolutely, in my opinion. Safety is a major part for myself as a board member. And I don't look at any other person in that building beside as a leader, which they should be, in equipping and making sure that those students get everything that they need from 7:30 to 3:30. So I just like to say again, thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here. I did tell Jordan that I would have to leave. I do appreciate it. Those of you that may not know me, my information is public. If you would like to further this conversation, I would gladly entertain it. I'm very sorry I had another commitment, but I wanted to be here with you all. Thank you so much, Trina, Regina.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Thank you, listening audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So thank you to our panelists for your insight on ways to reimagine public safety in schools. Thank you, Ms. Leslie Wesley, for your attendance as well. At this time, we will move on to the audience question and answer portion of the evening. We will limit this time to approximately 15 minutes or so to set some community agreements around questioning. Audience members may ask 1 question each. Please limit your questions to 30 seconds. This also goes for anybody that's online as well. Please type your question into the chat. Remember to state your question as a question and be respectful and responsible in your questioning. Does anybody from the in-person audience have a question for our panelists?
No question's a bad question.
And George is going to help me with questions online, I believe.
He has a question.
Yes, sir. If you could tell me your question. And I'm gonna repeat it, okay? So that the people online can hear
But
it.
is there any way that we can access and take a look at the South Bend specific data on arrests and, demographics of arrests and consequences of arrests? I'm just curious about what kind of data we have and how accessible it is.
Okay, so the question is there any data portals that South Bend Schools has that highlights the number of arrests or anything related to the police interaction with the students? I would state that because we don't have representation from South Bend Schools anymore, that you might want to email Leslie Wesley that question.
I will say, however, that data has been requested as a result from the NAACP as well as CAFE, and was told that that data was not available. However, what we do know is that the Department of Justice has mandated that the corporation reply to them and keep data on the suspensions and expulsions of students because they have excessively suspended and expelled students of color. And so we do know that there is a problem with the corporation as it relates to Black students with suspensions and expulsions. And it would even make more sense to think that some of those very same students have come in contact with the SRO officers in a very, very unfavorable manner.
Be a huge issue in and of itself, just not knowing what the numbers are.
Exactly.
And when we request it, right, we're met with cold shoulder. So I think the most recent data we have is maybe from 19. And let me tell you, the hoops we had to jump through to get that was incredible. But again, this is a part of the problem. If you are a person in the public that just wants to, you listen in tonight and you want to just go click a couple links and let me see the data, right? You can continue to be getting lied to because they're not reporting it. There is no data, right, from at least recent years. So again, this is why we felt that getting in front of people, talking to them at their door, collecting these petitions. I know that, people talking around this issue have kind of dismissed it as if it's not important. But let me tell you, every single person that has signed that list, we have not misrepresented what we're here for, what we're doing. People are shocked at the amount of money being spent. They're shocked when they hear the stories. They're shocked when they find out that there's only 4 police officers. They're shocked at the fact that we, again, just voted on a referendum and money is being spent in this way. And they're shocked that the MOU hasn't been updated. Again, the irresponsibility of a school board to sit with the in-place agreement of understanding with any department without reviewing that annually is, it's irresponsible. So again, this is a part of the problem. It's exacerbating the problem. And then when we're putting forth data, when we're putting forth efforts from the community, it's falling on deaf ears. We're being told how people feel when all that matters is the data.
Do you want to underscore what he said for the listening audience at home?
I already
Because
did
I thought
that.
it was,
She did.
no, the second comment that he made, I thought it was really important. He said that it's problematic that there is no data. I mean, that's what we were speaking to, but I think that it's important to just make
Recent
sure
data.
everybody said, there's
Yeah.
no data, or we're having problems getting data and being clarity around the arrests and the interactions of police with students.
Thank you. Yes, sir?
Question I have is, like Ms. Leslie was saying, is what improvements are actually being made with, like, go back to your story about Washington, kids are actually scared to move out of their seat. What improvements are actually there? Like, what is the SROs improving in the school system?
Okay, the question from the member of the audience are what are the SROs actually improving in the school system? And again, I would say because we don't have our representation anymore from Southland Schools, it may be difficult to answer that. Does anybody from the panelists want to speak to that?
I mean, we
Okay.
can say a little something. I mean, Ms. Wesley did share that SRO step in to find students when they're truant and feed them and, do all these wonderful things. So if we're talking about changes, I guess that would be what's happening, what they're bringing forward. But again, systemically, there's nothing that's on the books that I'm looking at, that the public has been presented as far as changes that are happening in the schools. So if I could answer that, I'm not part of the South Bend schools, but I don't see it. As a member of the public, somebody who's worked around education for the last 8 years, I don't see it. I don't see it coming. And the creation of a board at this point, again, is incrementalism. And I think that that's dangerous with our students, especially when we're already being told that our schools are in peril. So right now is not the time for incrementalism. Like, we have to be radical, we have to be intentional, and we have to be equitable in the things that we're doing in our schools.
I'd like to say that we need to go back to, again, the question about the data, because when I talk to, and I'm in schools every day, it's my job, when I talk to young people, they are telling us that children are being tased, period, full stop. Like, that is problematic, but there's no data to show that. I've actually heard from other police officers, oh yeah, they do that, the county officers do that, that's not us. Wait a minute, you know that that's happening? So we've had confirmation from a school board member who actually saw it happen, I believe, in her school. We had confirmation from police officers saying they know that it happens, but we have no data on it. Like, the first thing a lawyer mentioned was, wait a minute, hold up, we're tasing children? Like,
Kids.
what does that do to a child's body? Like, forget all the policies and practices, but if you have a taser, what is it set on? How much juice is going through the body of a child, and what is that doing to them? That, we should be outraged.
Somebody with 6 years of
Outraged.
education would be thinking about that.
They're not going to come back to school if they're tased. Like, that's what Charlotte takes my team on.
And the fact that, again, the young people I talk to, it's so common, it's like, oh yeah, that's happening, I've seen that happen. That's problematic. Like, this body of people, we need to be outraged, and we need to be talking to our school board members and saying, we want this information. Stop
Now.
it. Stop it. It's not acceptable. I asked them myself at another forum, have you ever been tased? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's our job to keep our kids safe. If one child gets tased, that's a problem. And the popular understanding is that it's common practice.
I'll add to that. If you're a person in the community right now and you have an interaction with a police officer, how hard is it for you to get that body cam footage? Near impossible, if they even have it. So imagine being an adolescent and trying to explain to your parent, after one of the boys in blue just telling mom and dad that you're just misbehaved, right? We have a pre-notion to just believe police. And we cannot just blindly trust any profession, right? Also, if these things are happening to me, these kids are in an abusive relationship with these SROs. I can't tell on you because we got people from the school board that are saying, no matter what, we won't remove you. Mm-hmm. And then I have to go back home like an abusive spouse to the home every single day, and I cannot escape you, and this is how I have to get my education. So now imagine how difficult it is for somebody who's not 18, who can barely navigate the job market, who can barely navigate getting through school, to get that information and properly display and portray their story. And especially when adults in power, adults who keep crying this wolf ticket of the children, adults in power are helping cover it up. Why? Because of shame. If I admit that there's something wrong now, I'm saying that my friend that came in the seat before me, or the people that are sitting at this table with me now, are not doing enough. And I'm telling you, I'm here, I'm a community person, and I've gone door to door, and we should demand more. Olitha, we spoke to you directly about how we felt. We called. Olitha's in my district. We showed her data, we spoke to her. Was it the last school board meeting? There was a call to get them out. And what are we getting? More lip service. So this is why the petitions are important. This is why targeting the districts are important, because with anything with elected officials, the only thing that matters to them once they have that spot is electoral consequences.
Do you have any questions from George?
Go ahead.
Yeah, we have several actually. So one is asking, assuming that we're able to move away from SROs.
Assuming we're able to move away from SROs,
What would a wind down process look like, so that there's a,
what would a phase out process look like?
From what we have to what we have.
From
A phase out process?
If we were to remove
I
SROs.
think that we can remove SROs immediately with no phase out. I think based on my experience in schools, first of all, we only had, I don't know right now, I know at one point we only had 4, and they kind of shared spaces. So all of the school buildings, my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, experience no officer in the schools at some point, at least half of the time. So, I wouldn't say we need to phase out, the police can go. I think that what we need to do is make sure that we're investing those dollars into additional individuals who are well-trained, or training those existing individuals in those proactive strategies. That's where the focus would be, rather than saying, oh, well, we're gonna take this one out, that one. Let's just do it and take those dollars and train up the people that we need to train in restorative practices, in de-escalation, and all of those best practices that we know as educators work for kids.
Okay, next question. We'll take a few more. Go ahead.
Are there police at Trinity, St. Joe, Marion, or PHM? And so,
The question is, are there police at Trinity, St. Joe, Marion, and what was the last school district?
PHM.
Or Penn Harris Madison that we know of?
I can speak to Penn Harris. So they do have officers in their building, but after speaking intimately with a teacher, the way that they use their resource officers is polar opposite to what we're doing. The way that the resource officer is used in Penn is basically precisely what the MOU says that they're supposed to be being used here. School shooter plans, drug activity in the school, things like that. To my understanding, there's a team in the school made up of teachers, security, counselors that respond to incidences in the school without the officer. Only at the last moment, if it's unhandleable by the school, is a police officer called in. But the rest of those
Does anybody know
places,
anything
I
in
don't
the
know.
other school districts?
I'm not familiar with those.
Okay,
I would be led to believe they're not.
okay.
I don't think Trinity
Next,
does.
next question.
What is so difficult about getting an updated and appropriate MOU?
What is so difficult about getting an updated memorandum of understanding? Again, our representation from Southland Schools unfortunately had to leave, so I would say that we don't know that answer.
I would be led to believe that until, if
Go ahead.
if individuals had not asked about it and brought the attention to the community about
We
the
wouldn't even be talking
MOU
about it.
not being available, I think we would continue to work in the same vein as usual, as the good old boy system. And now, only because it has been brought to the attention and now the community is becoming aware of the MOU dated back from 2012, and the fact that all of these dollars are being spent, then it's now an issue of we don't want the police in the schools and we anti-police. The police aren't educating our schools. This isn't an issue with the police department, and the community needs to understand that as well as the police. This is an issue with the South Bend Community School Corporation, who are educating our children. So there's a difference there. And I think if we had not asked for the MOU and brought attention to the problems that the SROs are creating, we still probably wouldn't have one.
Regina, did you want to speak?
I just want to say, I think, if I'm speaking just from my own perspective, I think that part of what's taking so long to even bring it to the table, it seems to me that the district is interested in creating these surveys in order to amass a body of data that's frankly not valid. And they're looking to support their own position to have some, what they consider data, to justify a decision that they want to make. And that means presenting an MOU and keeping it in. So they need to have some justification, because the data across the country shows that police are not effective. But what they're doing, and we've had a chance to review, they actually sent many of us copies of the survey around, was it the SRO survey? Before they sent it out and asked our opinion. And I know my opinion was, it needs to be scrapped. The people that they sent it to were researchers. They looked at the questions and they said, these questions are leading, they're not statistically valid, they didn't collect any demographic data, which would be critically important to better understand who's responding. Because when they did a survey like that for this code of conduct, and I was a part of that process, and what they said when they presented the data, oh yes, everybody agrees that the code of conduct is great, they think it's wonderful. But then there was a little caveat in bold, one line, oh, by the way, every parent, when asked if their student had had any behavior issues, every parent who responded to this survey indicated that their child had never had a behavior problem. So when you're using data like that
Why
to
did they do
support
that?
an opinion, it's
As a
problematic.
parent.
So that's why I believe it's taken a longer time for them to bring it to a vote, because they want to pretend like they've got data to show something positive, when in fact they don't.
Paul, did you want to respond?
Yeah, I just, in response to that question, and I think it's been very clear that, the people who are on this panel really are united, and we represent a wide range of kind of civil rights, human rights, social justice organizations in the city, are united saying the MOU is not the problem. Get rid of it. We have to remember, the training of police is to deal with criminals. They work with criminals. That's who they spend their life. I work with students. I spend my life with students. I have a very different attitude toward the world because I'm dealing with students. Well, the police are trained to spend their life working with criminals. How can people who are trained to do that, to occupy and to control, to face violence and to see people at their worst, how can they deal with young people who 3/4 of the time, if those in the room can remember, don't know what's going on, don't know who they are struggling, and at the same time are rambunctious, right? Everybody knows that if you have a cop who sees rambunctiousness as criminal, teenagers are going to get the short end of the stick. And we were all there, or are there. I think my being up here is sort of about not quite getting over it. But I just think the question is not the specifics of any particular officer. The question is, why do we want a system that treats our young people as criminals and then complains when they do what we really want? Okay. Treat them as criminals. Kids are really smart. They look at what adults want. And if they're going to a school with cops, with people who think that they're the problem, they get the message. So whatever we say, oh, what are they doing? What are they doing? How come they're doing this?
I know.
Well, stop telling them that that's their future.
Okay, so we'll take one more question from the audience, maybe two, and then one more for online. Okay, do we have any more online? So we'll do two more in the audience and then one more online. We'll go from the young person here.
So I'm a new student to Washington.
She's a new student to Washington. Woo woo.
Yeah.
And so one thing that I've learned is that I don't know if anybody can back this up, but I don't believe
One
we have
thing
any
that
police
she's
officers, right?
learned
Like
that.
at Washington, I
That's
believe
what I've
it.
heard.
So I've noticed
Repeat that again.
that there's no police officers.
So she's at Washington, there's no police officers at Washington.
And so I've noticed that there are more security guards.
She's noticed that there's more security
and
guards.
So I'm from Johnny Glenn.
She's from Mishawaka School, John Glenn.
No, that's
No.
from Walkerton.
Oh, Walkerton, I apologize.
So I'm a new student to South
Okay.
Bend. And like, what they say about Washington, they've said a lot of very rude things about Washington. And
Like it's ghetto.
It's
Like a lot of
ghetto, it's
negative things about
uneducated, you're not gonna
Washington.
learn anything.
You know why?
No, let her finish.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. Yeah.
But I've learned that like, so I was one of 4 black students at
One
John
of 4
Glenn.
black
So-
students at John Glenn.
It was very hard for me to open up when there was like 3 officers in the smallest
Very
like
difficult
school.
for her to open up
Like,
when there's
how would
3
I be able to
officers.
just walk around comfortably in that school? And like at Washington, I've never felt more comfortable
Didn't
just
feel
with
comfortable
security
walking
guards
around
that
at John
aren't
Glenn.
armed or
Feels
like
more comfortable at Washington
feeling
with
to
security
make you
guards.
intimidated of them just because they are armed. Like and my grades are like really good right now because of that. And like I've really been happy.
So she's
And
giving
like
a comment.
I'm happier at Washington, and I feel like that shows like we don't need policemen at schools. We don't.
Thank you so much, and good luck with everything.
So basically, her experience has been a positive one without police officers at Washington.
I believe our school board member that was here said, let's speak to the kids.
And I wanted to say that because Leslie asked, let's talk to the kids. Well, not all adults are gonna take children seriously, children. We're all gonna be considered not as educated ourselves. And Leslie asked how we felt about it. Well, I don't like the thought of having SRO officers, which I looked up their 3 main roles, and it's to educate, mentor, counselor, and something else. And how are they educating us? How are they counseling us? They don't talk to us. They assume what we're doing. They don't actually educate us about anything. That's the teacher's job. What are you like supposed to educate us on?
Okay, all right, thank you. Other audience member with a question? No?
Oh, no, I was just gonna, comment on Regina's point about the survey. I'm a parent in the Southland, I have a child who goes to the Southland schools, an elementary school now, which wasn't brought up here, and I think restorative justice practices should trickle down to the elementary schools too. But I got that survey, and I was going through it, and I realized it didn't even ask, it didn't ask a question about whether you want an SRO. The assumption was you want an officer in the schools. And so because I'm, tuned into this group, I was able, I put my comments in at the end that said, I don't think we should have police officers in the schools, period. But that wasn't even, they already gave you the premise of the assumption is everyone wants these officers there.
Okay.
And so it was, like you said, not an effective survey in my opinion.
Yep.
Parent from Southland Schools.
Cops are here, how much do you like them, 1 to 5? Yeah.
Got a question? Has to be a question, we're running out of time.
It had to be, okay, so I'm a parent, my son's autistic. He's worked with Regina, and one of the problems I had, it's hard because Leslie's not here, is you say you're gonna ask kids. I'm like, my kid, if you ask him a certain question, framed a certain way, we're talking about parents who have a hard time answering if you only ask them specific questions. So how do you ask those when some of these kids, they don't know what they're answering?
Okay. How can the survey ensure that it reaches all students?
Really? Good.
All right, last question online.
Yeah, this is actually the first one that came in, it's a great one.
Okay.
Instead of expecting SROs to be social workers, counselors, life coaches, etc., why not just hire social workers, counselors?
Thank you.
So let me I need to repeat it for the audience online, okay? So instead of expecting SROs to be social worker, counselors, mentors, and what was the last one? Life coaches. Why not just hire counselors, social workers, mentors, and life coaches? And I don't know if that's rhetorical. So we will go ahead and end our panel discussion.
I wish Leslie was here because she said something
Why
about
is she doing that? I am
systems. She said something about systems, like I wish she was here because how are these systems gonna help us? How can we trust that they're gonna
It's hard to get her online.
help everything?
Okay. All right, so again, thank you to all of our panelists for joining us
Thank you
this
for
evening
coming.
to discuss ways to reimagine public safety in
Sign the
schools.
petitions in the back if you haven't already.
Thank you for listening to our listening audience, in person and online. The organizations hope that we are able to share new perspectives on ways to ensure safety of all our students within the South Bend Community School Corporation. Have a wonderful evening, and there are some
Thanks,
things
Gianna.
for you
That was great.
to sign on
Thank
your way
you
out.
all for coming. Thank you so much.
Thanks, ma'am. I tried.
I was not
You killed